Everybody, the government is watching. Nowhere is safe. They don't want me to tell you this, but birds aren't real. Hey, welcome back to Mako's Mythic Menagerie, and today we have a treat for you. Let me introduce the alicanto. The alicanto is a metallic nocturnal bird from Chilean folklore, not to be confused with the alicante, which is a fictional snake from Mexico that drinks breast milk, impregnates women, and uses the human stomach like a luxury sweet. It is said the alicanto gain their colors from the minerals they eat. They appear as gold as the sun or shine silvery like the moon. Some reports say that they even appear as a coppery green color, like the Statue of Liberty. They are said to shine so bright that they cast no shadows. The alicanto is said to only eat metal ore. And because of that, some stories say that they aren't able to fly. They're too heavy. So they run around with their wings outspread. And others say that they are capable of flight, but only when they haven't eaten. Once they've gorged themselves on gold or silver, they're too heavy to move, let alone fly away. They're said to be mine-dwelling birds that live in the desert of Atacama, and they're believed to bring good luck to those that see them, unless you have greed in your heart. Occasionally, greedy miners would follow the birds and find their food source, but if the alicanto notices that it's being followed, it will dim its light and lead them off of a cliff to their death. So now, you might be saying, this bird sounds kind of like a cryptid, like the various cryptids that live in North America. You've got the jackalope, the Bigfoot, the chupacabra. So, what are the sightings for this creature? And unfortunately, I couldn't find many, but there is one prominent legend that says that in Alicanto led the man Juan Godoy to the mine he discovered in 1832. Godoy was a prospector and woodcutter who happened to find a silver mine 50 kilometers south of Copiapo in Chinarcelo. Word of his discovery got out and sparked the Chilean silver rush, drawing thousands to the area. The alicanto is rare, laying only 1 to 2 eggs at a time, whose shells are made up of the same materials that the parents eat, being silver or gold. But there are more well-known metal birds that are far more numerous and far nastier in disposition. The Stymphalian birds from Greek mythology were man-eating birds with the ability to fire metallic feathers at their prey. The birds had migrated to the marshlands of Arcadia to escape a pack of wolves that had been hunting them. They bred quickly and swarmed the countryside, destroying crops, fruit trees, and attacking the townspeople. Now, you might be familiar with the Stymphalian birds because it was Heracles' 6th labor to get rid of them. Heracles couldn't get close to these birds' nests due to the marshy ground. So Athena gave him a big metal bell designed by Hephaestus, which he rang, startling the birds into taking flight, where he was able to shoot them down with a bow and arrows soaked in the Hydra's blood that he had obtained from his earlier labor of defeating the Hydra. But Heracles did not kill all the birds, and the remainder fled and were later encountered by the Argonauts. After the navigator of the Argonaut ship, Typhus, died due to falling asleep at the helm and being knocked overboard, The Argonauts drifted from place to place, eventually landing on the deserted island of Ares, where they were immediately attacked by these metallic birds. Being the sacred birds of Ares, they could not be killed with the means that the Argonauts had. Fortunately, one of the Argonauts was able to remember how Heracles had scared the birds away with loud noise, so they were able to beat their swords upon their shields and startle the birds into fleeing. So at this point, I was intrigued to see if there were any other metal birds in mythology, and I was surprised to find this next creature. So let me tell you the story of how Talanoa defeated Uktena. The Cherokee believed that the spirits associated with the above world were opposed to the below world, inhabitants which included monstrous snakes, amphibians, and lizards that would sometimes emerge from their tunnels or their rivers to visit the middle world where we were inhabiting. And the most fearsome of these creatures was the massive snake with wings on its back and horns on its head, which the Cherokee people called Uktena. The Talanoa were these great mythic hawks, and in ancient times, a pair of Talanoa had a nest in a cave high on a rock cliff. They were gigantic birds that would fly up and down the river, and whenever they passed over a settlement, they would swoop down and carry away dogs or even young children. The people were unable to reach this nest, and the arrows that they would fire at the Talanoa would just glance off of their feathers. So in a final effort, they sought a medicine man. Now, this medicine man was able to make a long rope out of tree bark, and he tied loops at the end for his feet. He had the people lower him down over the cliff, and when he reached the nest, he found 4 young birds, which he tossed off the cliff into the river below. The great Uktena rose to the surface and devoured these chicks, and when the Talanoa came back to an empty nest, they became enraged. They circled over the river until Uktena rose above the surface, upon which time the first Talanoa seized the serpent in its talons and lifted it into the sky while the other tore it to pieces. The Talanoa carried the Uktena so high that they could no longer be seen from the ground, and in fact, the people never saw any of them again. So, why are metal birds so prominent in these various mythologies all over the world? Perhaps some were inspired by the tales of Heracles, but I find it hard to believe that the Cherokee people, which had no relation to the Greeks, were inspired by them. I'll continue to look into it, but for now, I'd like to thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if that's what you want to do. And tune in next time when I talk about something else.